Let's begin by creating a basic armature for our character using something called Z spheres. So this is just a blank ZBrush that we're going to start with, and let's take a look at the kind of the artwork that we want to go with for this. So this is kind of the idea that we're going to go with. Now this is kind of your first project going through this, so don't feel like you have to make it look exactly like this or exactly like what I'm doing on screen. As long as you get the idea, feel free to kind of customize it and make it your own, and don't really worry too much about, my neck is not as long as yours or anything like that. Be more concerned that you understand what it is we're talking about as far as the workflow goes, okay? But this is kind of what I'm going to aim for, something like that. All right, so the first thing that I want to do, and this being your first day, we're not going to go through in a detailed way, like the whole interface. We'll kind of do it as we go. And the idea with this is just to get you kind of through one project all the way. And then you can go back and you can watch the introduction and get a little bit more depth on each part of the interface and things like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is on my canvas, I'm going to change the look of this a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to go up to Document, and right down here, this back is going to be the background color, and then this range lets you set kind of the gradient. And I'm going to take that gradient out, so I'm just going to dial this slider all the way to the left. Okay, now this is our canvas where we're going to be working. The first thing that we want to do is bring in a Z tool, and we're going to use something called Z spheres to do this. Okay, you'll find your tools over here in the tool palette on the right hand side. You can see it's docked over here. I can minimize that, but you can see as I open it up, there it is. So this allows us to access our tools, which are basically our models in ZBrush. Now this is exactly the same as this tool menu. You can see if I open this up at the top, it disappears. So you can only have one open at a time. If I were to click this and drag it over, it'd be the same thing as having it over here. Now to access our tools, we can click on this large icon right here. And you see there is a selection, or several sections actually. 3D meshes is what we're concerned about right now. Okay, now there are primitive objects that we can use, but we want to draw out sort of a skeleton that we can create our geometry from. And so to do that, we're going to choose this Z-sphere tool. Click on the tool. Now you can see we've got it selected. Now I'm just going to draw one onto the canvas. So click and drag. If you're using a pen, I'm using a Wacom pen Intuos, and so you can just draw it out like that. Now as soon as we let off anything that we draw onto the canvas, if we want to edit this like a 3D object, we want to hit the T key or hit the edit button. If we don't do that, we won't be able to come in and now move around it. Okay, now I can, just using my pen, I'm just drawing out in the canvas to move it around. If I want to pan across, move it around like that, I can hold down the Alt key. If I hit Alt and start to move it, click down on the tablet and then release Alt, I can move in and out. Okay. So this is our Z-sphere. We can also turn on the floor if you're more comfortable thinking of this as like a 3D setting. You can turn on the floor and also perspective. Kind of get you a little bit oriented a little bit better. Again, clicking and dragging, Alt, clicking and dragging, or hit Alt, click, and then release Alt, and you can move in and out. Okay. You can also hit frame over here on the side to frame that up. Now there's a little axis down here in the bottom that kind of lets you know which way is which. We're going to use this Z-sphere to draw out a quick skeleton. Now to do that, we want it to be symmetrical, so I'm going to go up to Transform. Let's turn on Symmetry in the Y. I'm sorry, in the X. Okay, and now when we, again, still with this Z-sphere selected in edit mode, you can see that we're getting an indication of where the new Z-spheres are going to be located. So let's start to draw out some legs. You can see as we draw those onto an existing sphere that they are linked by these link spheres. Now if we want to move these, we can simply go up to Move, and we can move these around. So let's say we want to, let's keep these up close. So think about this main z-sphere as sort of the waist. And anytime you want to add a new z-sphere, go back to draw, and we'll just add a new one. We're just drawing them onto existing z-spheres. We can go over to the side, and I can move this leg forward a little bit. Same thing here. Something like that. We can come in and start to create feet. And we're not trying to do anything that is really complex. We're just getting the basic structure here. Okay, so maybe something like that. And then we want to come in, and right where it meets, I'm going to start to add a couple more. And we can kind of move those around. We can scale those z-spheres up just by choosing scale. We can start to add, things like the arms coming down. Okay. And we'll do the same thing down here. And you can go to different angles. If you hit shift as you're rotating, it'll snap to a particular view. Let's make his forearm pretty big. Okay, and then we'll kind of move that back a little bit. Draw out maybe a couple more. And then if you want to start to draw out fingers, you can do multiple z-spheres coming out from a single one. So I can come in and kind of bring this in, and then start to add more z-spheres. Now, this isn't quite geometry yet. Oops, take my draw size down. So it's not quite geometry yet, but it's going to allow us to create geometry. Okay, let's go ahead and add like a neck. You can kind of pull that up. Bring in a head. Move that. Maybe the back of the head. And maybe a little bit more to the front. Again, just getting a rough overall kind of shape to this. All right. So go ahead and finish out. If you want to do maybe like just two fingers, maybe there's one big finger and then there's a thumb, you can always come in and sort of move these around a little bit. So maybe that's a thumb, and then maybe this is sort of a big finger in the middle, and then there's one more coming off here. So spend a little time with this and experiment with the move, scale, and rotate. So if you come in here with rotate and click on the link sphere, you can actually rotate the arms. And so if they're too far forward, you can kind of rotate them back and they don't change shape. But if you want to kind of reshape those, you can use move instead. Okay, and you can come in here and move the individual spheres and just get a rough overall armature for your creature. Okay, so once you have that, the next thing we'll do is come in and just begin to use something called Dynamesh to kind of add other features to this, a little bit more, some of the larger features. So go ahead and finish that up, and we'll come back right in the next lesson and start where we left off.